Okay, long time no stock pick, and there is a reason for that. Mainly, we were expecting a market correction or at least a bounce downward on the 7th. That didn't come. Sorry, the 6th. So I was hanging out and just watching the market for a bit. I didn't make many trades in the last couple of weeks because I wasn't sure where the market's heading. But it looks like the market's going to continue upward. There have been quite a few good reports, like job reports, the possibility, I'd say the probability of the Fed raising rates, which will help bank stocks, especially Bank of America and other undervalued stocks. You can check out my article on Seeking Alpha for a list of undervalued banking stocks. But it looks like the market's going to continue to rally at least for the next week. So here we go with the stock picks for the week of um, November 9th. So I stayed out of the market for the past couple weeks. Just wasn't sure what's going to happen. Market's been rallying and it's going to continue to move upward. So this next week, I'm going to give you a few stock picks to get in on. All right. We're going to be using, as always, Morningstar for the fundamental. We don't do fundamental analysis here, but we're going to be doing. We're going to be at least understanding what these stocks are, like BBD. I have no idea. All of these were chosen by technical, but of course, you really do want to look into the fundamentals before you make a swing trade because, yeah, you don't have to, but I mean, you want to know what you're investing in. If you are bearish on Brazil, for example, you don't want to buy this stock. You'd probably go with something else that I'm choosing. But it just depends on how you are for a certain commodity, for a certain stock. If you're bearish on gold, you don't want to swing trade gold, even if I tell you that the technicals look good. All right. So here we got a Brazilian bank, BBD. I'm going to be using stockcharts.com, BBD, stockcharts.com to do the analysis. Now, whenever you see ADR, it means we're looking at a stock that is traded outside of the U.S. but listed on the U.S. Exchange through um, just through being allowed to be listed on the U.S. exchange. So this is on the New York Stock Exchange, but it's a Brazilian company. So there's one thing you also need to take care. You need to consider before you buy. Not just that it's in Brazil, but you also need to be aware of the exchange rate. If you think that US dollar is going to get stronger, and it really is, we've got a few really strong signs that the dollar is going to get stronger. One is oil is going down, and when oil goes down, the US dollar goes up. The second is if you want to go ahead and go to seekingalpha.com, you'll see I wrote an article that showed some statistical correlation between Canada and the US and the strength of the dollar. And it just looks like the US dollar is going to continue to grow in terms of strength. So, if you think the US dollar is going to continue to grow in strength, you probably don't want to be investing in foreign companies at this time. But regardless, let's say you really do like Brazil and you like the bank industry, well, okay, here's your stock. All right. So, BD, we're going to go and we're going to change we want to look at the moving averages, but we want to change it to swing trading parameters, which for me is 20 and 30. The indicators I like to look at are the Arun lines, not that one, the Arun lines, the Chaikin oscillator, and the slow stochastics right there. All right, let's update that. We're gonna take a look. All right, so I'm gonna move this down a bit. All right, so here's what we got. When the green line crosses above the red line, you generally have a buying signal. So here is our buying signal. If you scroll down, boom, 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 our buying signal came at this time, and it did move up actually a considerable amount. It doesn't look like it because moving from 5.5 up to close to 6 really doesn't look like a lot of money, but 6 divided by 5.5, I mean, that's a 10% growth in the past couple of weeks. And we have reason to believe it will continue to grow. When you see that a stock crosses over its longer moving average, we're looking at the 30-day. That's generally a buying signal. In addition, we see in the Chaikin oscillator the money is flowing into the stock, but we do want to be a little bit concerned because it looks like the stock might be overbought, surprisingly enough, even though it looks like it's been trending sideways. Another thing you want to look at are the candlesticks. What you'll see here is, if I can zoom in, if you look at the most recent candlestick pattern, this is the furthest I can zoom in. If you look here, you see there's a red candle and then a white candle. And the white candle is inside the red candle, it's smaller than the red candle. That's called a bearish hanami. And when you see bullish hanami. And when you see a bullish hanami, after that, if you've got a white candlestick that closes, that has a top that's higher than the previous white candlestick, the harami candlestick pattern is confirmed. And that means that the stock will probably continue to move upward for the next week or so. So we've got candlestick pattern, we've got Chaikin oscillator, and we've got the Arun lines. We've got 3 buying signals, and one signal that makes us want to be a little careful, and that's simply that this black line has moved above the 70 level, or 80 level, sorry, 80 level. You see it's at 83.75, and that's a little dangerous because it means that maybe too much money has gone into the stock, and the people who've been holding on for it, waiting to hit a high, will sell. But in this case, I don't think there's much of a worry because it's been going down for a while, and maybe this gap will fill because technically we have what's called an area gap, and area gaps statistically fill within a month. So this should be filled. We should see the stock go up to like 6.25 in sometime soon. And if that happens, that's what, like almost 15% ROI. So this is a pretty good upside, and we have a lot of buying signals. It really just depends on whether you feel strongly about Brazil or the banking industry in Brazil. But technically, this is a pretty good bet. And if you want to get in on this, it's cheap enough. It's not a penny stock, but it's pretty close. It's cheap enough. Wait until this gap fills and then get out. So take that 15% if you play this. Take that 15%, get out, and move into something else. But this is a nice swing trade, a short-term trade. So that is BBD. Next one we're going to look at is NRZ. And like I said, what I did was technical analysis. I didn't even look at what these are. So obviously you want to take a look. This is a new residential investment corp. So this is probably an REIT. Yes, you can tell by the yield. So if you hold on to this for a year, you're going to get 13% back just in what you invested alone. And that already helps you beat the market. A lot of people are worried about investing in REITs. REIT stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. Essentially, it's the same as buying property, but you don't have to put down a shitload of money to actually buy a house. Instead, what you do is you just invest in this, and you're getting rent from all the tenants of the properties owned by this company. So that's why the yields are usually pretty high. And this is a really high yield. So even though I chose this based on the technicals, and I'm trying to tell you this is a good swing trade, it's actually more than a swing trade. It's probably a good investment. It's probably a good position trade, assuming that you understand it. So I'm going to say this is a good swing trade, and my idea here is don't swing trade it. It's more of a if you think this is a good long-term investment or a good position trade, get it now. Get it while it's at that position that looks like it's going to grow, and hold on to it. You can see what is invest in, just residential mortgage. Okay, so some REITs are interesting. Maybe they invest in like healthcare facilities or laboratories, but most of them are pretty boring. It's just real estate, blah blah blah. Residential, rent out homes. Okay, so that's it. Nothing really interesting here, but let's check the technicals. NRZT, NRZ, sorry, NRZ. All right, so Arun lines not telling us much. Yesterday we just crossed over that 30-day moving average. So it could be that the momentum is shifting upward after a long stretch downward. In addition, the Chaikin oscillator, which it's really a hard indicator to understand. But you can think of it like the money flowing in to the stock. And as you can see, it's now in positive territory. So that's a good sign. And then again, we have this uh, red candlestick with a little white candlestick inside. I like this white candlestick. It looks like a hammer, right? The hammer candlestick usually signifies, sorry, I should close Skype, usually signifies a bullish reversal. But more importantly, it's the same candlestick pattern we saw before. Small white candlestick within, oh, Jesus Christ. Small white candlestick within the red candle. That is a bearish Harami. And you can see that the most recent candlestick way above this candlestick a day ago, which confirms that pattern. So over the next week, we're probably going to see an upward momentum here. Now, like I said, this is a real estate investment trust. It's probably better if you play it for the long term than the short term. So if you are interested in this, this is a pretty good investment. I'm not going to say it's a good investment. Do your research. It's a good time to get in today. Okay. So next week is going to be a good time to get into this investment if this is something you want to hold on to or position trade. All right. Next one, we're going to move on to power, and I'm guessing this is an energy stock. I remember I looked at a couple energy stocks, but let's take a quick look here. All right, Quanta Services. They got a nice ticker. What do? Contracting, infrastructure, oil, gas. Okay, so it's an energy stock. Now, we've had a drop off, and I'm guessing that we saw a gap. Maybe not. Yep, there's a big gap right here. Now I can't see the volume because this candlestick actually covers the volume, so I have no idea what that volume is, and I'm not going to go even look at it because just based on the chart alone, you can tell this is called a breakaway gap. But some breakaway gaps don't continue downward. Instead, they move upward and actually fill the gap. And what we've seen recently is that kind of pattern. Now, the Arun lines, the moving averages don't give us a bullish thesis, but we see money flowing in. We see money flowing into the stock. And we see, again, white candlesticks opening or closing above the previous white candlestick. And that's usually a good sign. It just means it's probably continue upward. So what I'm thinking is that this is going to close. This gap is going to close. It's one of those weird gaps, just like this gap before. It's one of those gaps that it looks like it's moving backward. Okay, this one fell, but it moved up again, right? And the gap will close when there's a day that hits that top right there. So you can see here, boom, at 27, we hit it again. And that's probably going to happen again. I don't know why. I'm not familiar with this stock in particular, but it could be that this stock has, maybe it has equity or assets within the company that allows it to always be pretty well valued. And a lot of banks are like that because there's a lot of money in banks, there's investments behind banks, and they really can't drop below a certain number reasonably. This might be one of those stocks. You're going to want to do your own research for the fundamentals, sorry. But the technicals are saying, look, we got a gap. It looks like a breakaway gap, but clearly we're not moving further downward. We're actually moving upward. And it might be a good time to get in on this stock now as money's flowing in and set your target to be like 25.5. And that's actually quite a big profit right there. Moving from 20.85 to 25.5. That's an ROI of 22 or 23%, which is quite high. So that's a pretty good bet right there. Alright, we're going to go with UUUU. And I believe this is also an oil stock or an energy stock, something like that. Energy Fuels. They are engaged in uranium mining. Okay, so there's a uranium stock, and I have made stock picks for the long term for uranium before on Seeking Alpha, in my newsletters. Uranium is a little bit of a confusing commodity, but as Japan restarts this nuclear stuff, those power plants are going to need uranium, and uranium's got to come from somewhere. That's really going to trigger a growth in the uranium market. Now that's the fundamental, the long-term, the rumor-based kind of stuff of this play, but we're not really looking at that. We're looking at the technicals more than anything. Again, this is one of those stocks where we see money flowing in, and more importantly, we see it oversold. This is a stock you're probably going to want to wait on a bit unless you're really, really bullish on uranium. But the idea is, first we got an open gap right here. Second, we've got money flowing into the stock. Third, it's oversold, and you can see the black line starting to move upward. So it's probably gonna move back up to a level that's quote unquote more reasonable for the market. And let's just say it really does fill this gap at like 3.6. So moving from 2.81 to 3.6, that's almost 30% ROI, which would be really, really nice. So that's a pretty easy play on a penny stock for uranium, and it's got an awesome ticker, 4Us. It's just an interesting play if you're into commodities. And the last one we're going to look at is VHC. No idea what they do, but they're also a penny stock, about $4. And internet company, technology company, blah 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 blah, that kind of stuff. Domain name registration or registry. All right, so we got the Arun lines. They looked like they're gonna touch, but they didn't. They're both falling at the same time. That's usually okay if they both fall at the same speed. What you don't want to see is like the red one going up while the green one goes down. We still got a pretty bullish signal here as long as the green is above the red. You can see it's been trending sideways. So the moving averages don't really mean much here because they're probably going to be pretty much equal to where we are. But money is flowing in, and we see that the slope of this Chaikin oscillator is upward now. In addition, look at the candlesticks. That's the same symbol, same pattern we saw before. We got the bullish Harami with a confirmation, and nothing really interesting here. So it's mainly about these bullish Haramis and the Chaikin oscillators. The idea here is that money is flowing in to the stock market, even though we had some, wishy-washy signals in the past week. Now on Friday, we got a really strong signal to buy into the stock market. There's probably going to be an influx of money. Um, we want to find those stocks that have that influx of money already solidified, that momentum upward. And we want to look at the candlestick patterns because we're swing trading. So for this stock, we got both of those. We got the money flowing in, we got the candlestick pattern. We got a stock that's been trading sideways when it usually never trades sideways. It either goes down or up. You see that? You see the history of this stock? This is quite a rarity for VHC. So I mean, it's got to go some way eventually. The volatility is not going to stay low the entire time. It's either go up or down, even if it's just for a short time. And all things being equal, it's more likely that this stock goes up. So this is a pretty good bet. I would say this is probably our safest play out of all of these, though possibly not the most profitable. But here are the stock picks. A bit different from last time, which I think had a clearer theme, but this is just what I saw. I looked at the candlesticks first, and then I looked at the other technicals, but these are all pretty good picks for the next week, and really you can't go wrong next week. There's gonna be a rally. I mean, the rally is gonna continue. So if you've been thinking about investing in a specific stock, go for it. There's no reason not to do it. Now is a pretty good time. Um, Not to say that before was not a good time, before is actually a better time, but now we have a pretty strong confirmation that the market is going to continue upward. So there's what we got. Choose one. Ask me any questions if you have any questions, and we will move on from there. I'll talk to you next week, and happy trading.